All right. So welcome everyone to this Monday, October 2nd's conservation meeting. So this meeting is being held virtual as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You're hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. And here's our diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. The Scituate Conservation Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. Excellent. So we
Great.
have our agenda, and I'll pass it to you, Frank.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Good
We're going
evening.
to accept the agenda.
I'd like someone to accept the agenda or move to accept the agenda. Do we have any changes to it, Amy? I'm sorry.
No,
Okay. Sorry. So
I-
we have Jen motion, right?
Yep.
A second.
I'll second that.
Somebody. We still have to have the meeting. Somebody's got to do it. All right, Brent. All in favor? Did we say Richard's not with us yet?
I don't believe he's coming.
Okay.
Yeah, Rich
Doug?
or Penny.
Yep. Doug, yes.
Yes.
Right. Penny is not with us this evening. Andy? Do we have Andy on yet?
Yeah, he's unmuted and his mouth is moving, but
Does he give us a thumbs up?
he just gave us a thumbs up.
Good. And Brendan,
Yes.
great. Thank you. Okay. So at least Andy can hear us while he figures out his mic. So we're going to go for 49 Seaside Road, which has been continued from 9/25. And this is somebody from Grady, Ross Engineering.
I've got Dick Rockwood.
Yes.
Okay. All right. This is the one that we were struggling with. Good evening, Dick.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. Okay.
This looks
So I
like
did
a little more
color coding here. Yeah.
Awesome. So you want to just give us the skinny?
Yes. So the green part is what we're asking to do is a new deck. I think the owners had purchased an additional piece of land to make this work. So when you come in the driveway, there's a set of stairs coming up, and then that's going to be a covered porch. It's about a 6x10 on that covered porch. And then that green area is the new deck. The yellow deck that you see, existing open deck, that's there right now. And then the deck continues down to the stairs that take you down towards the beach. And that other portion that your arrow's on right now, that proposed addition, I believe that's already permitted. That is sitting on top of the existing deck. It's an extension to a dining room.
Okay.
I think it's somehow in the process here, but because this goes back a while ago, we weren't really putting a hole in the ground, and we were just building that on top of the existing deck. But it has not been built yet. So whether it's part of this or not, that's fine, however you want to handle it. But that's what we're asking for, is the deck extension, and that blue portion will be a covered porch as you walk in the front door.
Okay.
And the question came up about the fireplace. The fireplace is going to go. I did not get to speak to the owners about the little retaining, but just the way the stairs are and the walkway and the shed, I mean, there's just brick pavers down there. We didn't have any intentions of taking any of that out. It probably get disrupted anyways when they go to drive the piles, but I haven't had any conversations about it. And that little retaining wall, the land is almost right up to that retaining wall as it stands on the uphill side. And I don't think it's any higher than 18 inches. So it's not, some massive wall. I don't have any photos of that currently to pull up or anything, but I don't know if anybody's walked the site. That's pretty much what we're asking for.
Okay. I did see maybe somebody from Ross Engineering was jumping in if there was anything that they wanted to add before we pass it over to Amy.
Okay. Did you see
Mhm.
Kevin Grady? Is that what you?
I thought I saw Rob Carazon. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually not working on this one, so I don't want to speak on it at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
Bro.
Right. Amy, do you want to speak to 49 Seaside?
Well, yeah, so we went over this at the last hearing and you just had some questions about what the project really entailed. I mean, they're closing in some of the existing space that they have as an addition was the description of the project. So a couple of different additions, and they're all elevated on piles. We do have the structural plans showing the elevations. Some land subject to coastal storm flowage right on the beach here. And it looks like something that you could approve.
Okay. So Doug?
So yeah, that looks like what my fancy schmancy markup was last time. Nobody wanted to see. But
That's not true.
yeah, that's so I had a comment about what was underneath on whether or not that existing brick patio, and I guess it's brick. It kind of looked like concrete, but whatever it is, is that staying? Is that going to be removed? And I only bring that up from the perspective of improving a little bit of impervious area, if that's what it is. So we're going to put an addition on with a little additional roof cover, and it's not a huge deal. I realize that we're talking very small numbers here, but it was the only question I actually had on whether any of that was staying or going, because there's a fireplace there and stuff like that.
So I would say the fireplace is going because it can't be there. And the rest of it, we were planning on leaving it. He's got to get in there and dry piles around it. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that'll have to go just to have them dry piles. But I have no plans to say that we're going to take it out. I hadn't discussed anything with the owners, so I'd rather not say it's going to go. But logically looking at it, I don't think you can get from point A to point B without going over that area. So that might just get broken up anyways and clean. If it doesn't, it'll get cleaned up. But
yeah, that's kind of
my not going to use it as you almost could stand on the brick patio and be under the deck. The house is that high. But yeah. I don't, it's nothing that as I say, I haven't talked to the owner since 8 or 9 months ago,
Okay.
So
yeah, that was like, as I was trying to think that through, driving the piles, and through the walkway is gonna probably disturb it in any rate. And
Yeah, I would think
Um,
so, because there's not another way to get around there that I see.
yeah, it's probably not that impervious, would be my guess anyways. But
Right.
so that's it. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I was trying to follow some of this. I understand like you haven't spoken with them about it, but maybe that's just something that goes in the conditions. Amy, as a part of approving the project, because I would prefer for there to be less mystery, especially in this area, because it's a pretty active environment. I'm looking at. I think I'm okay for now. When I look at it's hard, it's a hard house to visit just because of like how it feels very private when you're driving up to it. But when you look at the satellite images, it's definitely a manicured site in terms of uh, rock perimeters and whatnot. So I'd be in favor of removing these retaining walls, especially in this area. But that's it for me for now.
Okay. Andy?
You hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, great. I have nothing to add right now.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah, I guess previously I didn't realize how vertically this, because I was looking at an overhead. Yeah, I think I'm okay. Yeah,
Okay. All
I
right.
agree that any retaining walls that we could remove, obviously it is a manicured site, as Jen put. So any retaining walls that could go, I would be in favor of.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience that wants to speak to this? I'm not seeing any hands. Okay. I would, I think that I would concur that I really don't see the need for the fireplace. We're kind of giving them the opportunity to add on and create a little bit larger impervious area. So removing that the fireplace doesn't have any function anymore. So at least that piece, and typically, I don't know how old these retaining walls are. We would not encourage that in that site because it tends to push water away. But it also doesn't look like they're very tall, or the patio is very large. So not sure how much real gain is there, but we certainly wouldn't rule out at least getting some benefit in that location. I mean, it looks like over time this house has grown, little bits at a time. Okay, I don't have anything else. Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we close 49 Seaside Road.
Anybody want
I'll-
to second
I'll
that?
I'll second that.
That's Doug, right?
Yep.
All in favor? Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thanks, thanks, Dick. 74 and 74C Glades Road. And then did we just include 74B because it's all
Yes,
together. So this hearing's been continued from September 25th. So we'll be discussing 74C and 74B Glades Road. And we have Morse Engineering.
Yes, this is Greg Morse. How are you?
Good evening, Greg.
Good evening. Also with me tonight, if he could be unmuted, is Adam Brodsky. Thank you. For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing the property owner near Drury. This is a continued public hearing for 74, 74B, and 74C Glades Road. These are three single-family homes that were destroyed in the fire last spring. And what we're seeking to do is to rebuild those homes predominantly in the same locations. We had presented this plan to the commission back in August, took your comments, and since then we have revised the plans. We've submitted new plans. We've submitted new pile plans and a letter dated September 26th as well. With those revisions, we reduced the overall depth of the homes so that they weren't going out as close to the beach. We pulled them back from the beach from their original proposed locations. We removed the applicant's proposed pilings along the rear lot line, separating the house from the beach. And I want to be clear that we're in no way restricting beach access to anyone in front of this property. We've removed those piling locations. The plans do depict pilings along the north lot line, which is the side lot line against the town way. That's the walkway where people walk onto the beach. There are currently pilings along that town way. I think 2 of them or 3 of them got disturbed at the end. We are replacing those along the side lot line, but nothing along the oceanfront portion. The updated plans took into account the Board of Health comments. Board of Health is awaiting conservation prior to their approval, but I expect their approval subsequently thereafter. Our September 26th plan documented the number of piles that existed at the site pre-fire and the number of piles that exist at the site, will exist at the site post-development. As you know, piles are required here. We are in a FEMA zone. It's a velocity zone at elevation 20. As such, what we've proposed are timber-driven piles, the first floor being at elevation 24.0, which is in full compliance with NFIP and FEMA flood construction. I want to be clear that this site is not a barrier beach. It's not a mapped barrier beach with the DEP. It is, however, considered coastal beach and coastal dune area. That letter that we submitted September 26th documents the building coverages. As I said earlier, we reduced the size of the buildings by pulling them back slightly from the beach. For reference, number 74, the building and the porches associated with the building used to occupy a space of 1,920 square feet. They're proposed now at 1,790 square feet. 74C used to occupy 285 square feet. It's proposed at 378 square feet. As a net on that property, 74, 74C, where they exist on the same lot, the total coverage pre-fire was 2205. The proposed coverage is 2168. It represents a 1.7% reduction in the overall coverage. We also did a review of the piles at the site, what existed at the site pre-fire versus what is proposed now. Pre-fire, there were 72 piles at the site. In proposed, we're proposing 64 piles. So it's less of a ground impact with the proposal. We were fortunate that there's a record plan identifying pre-fire the piles that were there, as well as documentation on photographs, which we submitted that the piles that were there were doubled up or sistered up when they were installed previously. The footprints, they're less than or equal than pre-fire. The pilings comply with FEMA requirements. We've pulled the buildings back from the beach. We've eliminated the pilings as requested. DEP had no further comments. Regarding 74C, the same can be said about the coverage and about the pile layout with 74B. 74B, the existing home in porches were 1,288 square feet. What's proposed is 1,236 square feet. It's a 4% reduction. Existing on the site were 34 piles. What's proposed are 32 piles. So again, a reduction with respect to ground footprint, a reduction with respect to pilings touching the resource area, and a betterment with respect to FEMA flood zone compliance. I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Greg. Amy, do you want to start with this one again?
Sure. So, all right. So yeah, so we did already put out comments on this, and you guys, gave some pretty thorough direction at the last meeting. Just a couple of things from one, just to clear up from Greg. So Board of Health does still have this under review. They haven't signed off on it yet. They're not waiting just for us, just so you know. Number two, it does look like this is an improvement in what they originally submitted, like they've scaled back. So I do think that puts us in a better place here. We do have the structurals. They are going up on driven piles, so that's good, meeting flood standards. Not adding material. I guess that I am a little concerned that we don't have the Board of Health fully signed off yet. And just everything applies, which we talked about last week for the other, these glade sites and with respect to flooding and storm damage. And these are tough locations, but I think that as long as they're going to meet state building code for coastal resource areas, that's something that can be conditioned, typical for what you would condition in areas of coastal dune, barrier beach, velocity zone. So you would, on a beach, definitely you'd condition, no lattice below, and I'm pretty sure that they've already agreed to that. Would be a condition. We also talked about the porches and about how these covered porches are a little bit of a slippery slope into enclosed spaces. I don't know if you want to touch on that. We talked about that on the other Glades property too. So I think that covers it.
Okay, thank you. Jen?
Oh, yikes. One question I had, when you very helpfully provided the metrics, Greg, on coverage, coverage is the amount of impervious space, is that correct?
It's anything that has a roof over it. So the house and the porches.
Okay, and so all of these decks are, I'm trying to look really closely, are now all covered, so there's no open deck.
So on house number 74, along the right side of the house, there is an open deck and a set of stairs on the front. So that is open, that is not covered. 74C, which is the smaller building, kind of at the front of that same lot. The set of stairs is not covered. And then there is a small open deck along the town walkway on the side. So that would not be covered.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I should have been more clear. My mind was more going to the porches or decks on the ocean front side of the houses.
So those, yeah, those are proposed as covered porches. Those are included in those lot coverages that I just read out.
Okay. I'm okay for now. I am reluctant to close these without Board of Health, just given the how tight these lots are, and if there is a change to that, the ramifications of it. But I'm good for now, Frank.
Okay.
Chair Snow, this is Adam Brodsky. Could I speak to the Board of Health approval, please?
Why don't we just go through the members, Adam, and then you can let us know where we're at with stuff, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Doug?
Well, it looks like and actually, I'm just going to say, make it simple. It looks like I'm good with it. I think they cut back quite a bit from what we saw before. I was trying to find the old file and put it up side by side. That was taking too much work. And but no, it looks like I was wondering though if Jen could click on 74B Glades, since there it's not on the same page. Yeah, so I was looking at the size of that. So that one's a little bit more of an increase, but I think overall, when you look at this as a total project, I think they did cut back on that. And some of the comments about restricting beach access, they did take that into account, so that they listened to the butters on that, and I think I appreciate that. So I think all in all, I'm good with this.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, I appreciate a lot of the changes. I think one of the big ones, though, that we talked about in the first hearing was those enclosed porches getting closer to the ocean and discouraging that. So seeing those enclosed porches still pretty significantly moving towards the water. I don't love it. If they were uncovered, I'd feel better. But that gives me pause on the project as a whole, moving further that way.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah, in the same vein as Andy there. Yeah, I'm not into the covered porches on the ocean side. It looks, to me like the new home is in the, an increase over the previous home with, if you draw in all those covered porches on the previous, in the original. And now they're just adding another covered porch, and I'm not really I'm not a fan of that at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anything
I heard
else?
like there's a lot of the word, and I guess I got lost in it. There was a lot of a reduction, the word used in reduction, and I guess it didn't quite fit. Like I didn't see where that reduction was happening. So I just, yeah, those covered porches are not. I do appreciate pulling back more from the beach area. That is that I do appreciate, but the cover porches I'm not a fan of. And then the last thing, a question, there are the posts that we're looking at along that exist, and those are staying, and they are all interconnected. Is that correct?
Those posts that are along the rear lot line there are shown because that was what was the existing survey. Those have since been removed at this point, actually.
Okay.
There are no posts along the rear lot line today.
Are they going back?
But there
No.
will be.
No,
Oh.
we're not proposing to replace them. We removed those at the request of the abutters.
Oh.
Oh, I thought they were just there.
The posts that are going back are the ones that are along the side lot line only, against the town walkway, not against the beach.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah, but the covered porches, I'm not a fan of.
Okay. So maybe before we jump to the audience, Adam, do you want to elaborate on where we are with things?
Oh, thank you, Chair Snow. I just want to point out that while the commission traditionally likes to have things like Board of Health approval in hand before they close the public hearing, that's not required in the wetlands regulations. As you know, we're required to apply for all obtainable permits, but we don't need to have those in hand. And I know these notices of intent have been pending for some time, and so the client has a desire to close the public hearing at the earliest possible point so he can begin the process of obtaining building permits. If the Board of Health changes a design element, we will have to come back to the Conservation Commission, but the applicant is willing to accept that risk. I do want to speak just briefly regarding the covered porches, and the commission may be aware that there have historically been covered porches on several of these structures, and that the applicant, Mr. Drury, is simply seeking to reconstruct what was there. These are sort of unique and historic architectural features, and he simply wants to restore the character of these homes. But I would remind the commission that these are architectural features, and with all due respect, the commission really has no authority to regulate architectural features. And as far as wetlands protection is, there's no material difference whether there is a covered porch or whether there's an open deck within land subject to coastal storm flowage or coastal dune. So whether it's a covered porch or whether it's an open deck, that's not going to have any impact to the coastal resource areas that are the subject of this hearing. And so I'd respectfully suggest that it's perfectly appropriate for the commission to issue orders approving the project with covered decks. Now, I know that this has been a topic of conversation with the commission. I didn't participate, and obviously the project at 25 Julian Street in Scituate, it was suggested to me that that somehow was precedent for this position. I did take the opportunity to speak with the project engineer on that, and while the issue was raised, they were more interested in getting the project approved, and it wasn't necessarily a large issue for the client. In this particular matter, these covered porches are important to the client. And as I said, it's really not within the commission's purview to dictate what type of architectural feature is located particularly above base flood and design flood elevation on these locations. So I just wanted to speak to that and impress upon the commission the importance of the covered porch for these projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Adam. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this? I see at least one hand up. See Mr. Putnam. Maybe we could start with Mr. Putnam. I see another one after that. And when you're admitted or signed in, if you just give us your name and address, please. And the other thing, we do have a bunch of hearings this evening, so if someone's brought up the issue, we'd appreciate it not being fully vetted a second or
Mr.
third
Putnam
time.
should be on, Frank.
Okay. Mr. Putnam? Hello?
Okay, thank you. Christian Putnam, 81 Glades Road, Scituate, Massachusetts. And this, I think this will be very quick. Are you hearing me all right?
We got you.
Wi-Fi seems to be a little tough.
No, we got you. Thank you. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm going to turn off the camera just to try to get a little more bandwidth here. I know this has been addressed. I just want to confirm when I look at the narrative for 74B, it still states that the pilings will be relocated at the edge of the property. And I believe Craig has been referring to that to the back of the property, assuming that the front is on Glades Road. And I just want to confirm that there are no plans to put posts other than those that are along the walkway, that there won't be any out on the beach. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Because it is still in the narrative. That's why I want to reconcile it.
Okay. Greg?
That is correct. And if you zoom in on the plans, it would specifically call out that they're on the side lot line only.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Greg. That
You'll
takes
set.
care of me.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We have Carol Tremblay.
To be all set, Mr. Tremblay.
Okay, yes, hi, this is Robert Tremblay, 71 Glades Road.
Good evening.
First off, I do want to acknowledge the and gratitude of certainly us and probably a lot of other abutters that the applicant has decided not to move pilings out and rope off the beach. That's very, very appreciated. The one thing I did want to mention, which has not been brought up in any of the meetings up to this point, the 74B, 74C and 74 are both rental properties, which have been significantly increased in size. And no one has brought up the issue of parking related to this. And I can tell you, with living across the street, parking was a difficult issue that was constantly being addressed and argued and impacting several of the neighbors. So I'd like to get some feeling for how they plan to address the increased vehicles undoubtedly associated with the increase in size of these buildings, increase in number of bedrooms, et cetera.
Chair Snow, it's Adam Brodsky. Do you want me to take that question?
Either you or Greg. Sure, thank you.
I'd be happy to. Mr. Tremblay, that's not a question for the Conservation Commission. That would have been addressed by the Zoning Board of Appeals in connection with this, or the Building Department. And so the question of parking is really not for the Conservation Commission.
Just out of curiosity, is there any parking? I'm just looking on the plan to see where parking occurs now.
I understand we're keeping the parking as is. There's been no increase in the number of bedrooms of any of these structures.
Okay.
If Greg would like to show you where those are, that's fine. It's really, again, not a conversation for the commission.
Is there any improvement or changes to them at all? They're going to stay exactly the same?
So the parking spaces, there's gravel parking spaces right now at the front of the site. The plan calls out for, the gravel to be relayed over those existing parking spaces. There is enough room there. It's approximately a 40-foot by 56-foot area that's for parking currently. We're not altering that size or shape. And as Adam said, we're not increasing the number of bedrooms on the site. We're not increasing the intensity, but we are proposing to put new gravel down over that existing gravel parking area.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have anybody else on? Any other questions from the audience? So I have a few questions, and Greg, maybe you can help me with this. When I look at these plans for both 74B and 74, 74C doesn't seem to change a whole lot. It looks like there's some decks wrapped around it, but the structure is kind of similar. And I'm assuming that it's all a structure, right? There's no,
74C, yes, it's all structure essentially.
so that footprint got a little bit larger,
Yes, it did.
and there's no deck other than the landing for the stairs.
There's a 3 foot wide deck on the townway side of 74C, and then
Okay.
there's the landing and the
Oh, I
stairs.
see it. Okay,
And
great.
so, yes,
Yep.
the footprint of that building, it was at 285 square feet. It is going up to 378 square feet, that building
So there's a decent increase
on
in
that building.
that structure of the footprint. And
Yes.
then in 74, I guess what puzzles me is you must have used the square footage of the covered porch in your calculations for the area, but you're not including the covered porch in your calculations for the proposed.
That's incorrect. I'm
So-
using the covered porch in both scenarios.
So I'm just curious how this really doesn't change much in
Sure.
area. I'm
Sure.
just, I can't figure that out.
Sure. If you're able to zoom into the plan here, what you'll notice is on the right side of that existing house,
Mhm.
you know, we've hatched essentially what you would consider the main box of the house, the main structure of the house. But the existing porch goes all the way over to that right side lot line and actually goes over that right side lot line. So the porch there was significant in width.
Okay,
Exactly. That's all covered porch where the cursor currently is. That light gray line just to the right of the cursor was the edge of the existing porch.
so that's not being reconstructed.
No. So with these new layouts, we've brought them into much better compliance with the fire standards. And we submitted a letter from the fire chief, to that effect. We've brought all the setbacks to a minimum of 3 feet from the lot lines, and the majority of them are now 5 or 6 feet from the lot lines. So that's where you make up the coverage, is that existing porch went over that right side lot line. And now that we're keeping the proposed structure, 6 feet from that lot line, we're making up the difference in the coverage with the length of the building front to back instead of side to side.
And how about 74B?
74B is a similar scenario. If you zoom in on that plan, you'll see that there was a covered porch that went essentially right up to the right side lot line. And then it encroached over the lot line with the 74C. It wrapped all the way around the ocean side and then the walkway side of that existing structure. In the proposed, let me zoom in on the proposed. The proposed, we've eliminated the porch on the walkway side so that that's just open deck, and we've pulled that building back to 3.7 feet from the lot line.
Okay,
We've, increased the setback to 74C between the buildings that way. So yes, while you're covering more area now out closer to the beach with the covered porch there, it's the side lot lines and the front lot line that you're reducing those areas.
okay. I guess my comment on both of these, are they covered porches enclosed in any way? Or are they just open railings?
Believe they're open porches. They're not enclosed space.
So I guess, Adam, to the point of whether this is part of our purview, I see them as more than architectural features. I mean, this is a roof structure that now is extending another 12 or 14 feet towards the ocean that wasn't there before.
Chair Snow, how does that change anything with respect to land subject to coastal storm flowage? or coastal.
It's a structure moving closer to the ocean. I mean, this is
Well, the reason, and Greg alluded to this, is the reason that this is being redesigned is to increase fire protection, because these structures burned down, I'm guessing in part because they're too close together.
I get it.
So we're trying to separate the structures and not penalize the homeowner for nothing that the homeowner did here. And I guess we can respectfully disagree whether the use of that structure on land subject to coastal storm flowage is something that the commission should weigh in on.
Well, I guess my point with this is, so what you've done with these is you've taken areas that had covered structures, covered porches, and now that becomes part of a dwelling, and then the covered porch. It's a creep closer to the ocean with.
But Chair Snow, I guess I'd ask the question, so what is the detrimental impact of that? The structure is located entirely above the design flood elevation in compliance with the state building code requirements, which is all that's required within land subject to coastal storm flowage at this time. Whether that structure is enclosed or not doesn't change that those building code flood construction requirements. And we're not, as Greg said, we're actually reducing the number of piles from what existed previously. So in terms of wetland impacts, it doesn't matter in this scenario.
Is it possible to condition those that they don't become more than a covered porch?
Are you asking my opinion?
Yes.
I mean, you can condition this as you wish. Again, I don't think the commission can regulate use. Now, if there's going to be additional construction out there that would rise to a level of an enforcement issue, you always have jurisdiction if something changes out there. But candidly, I mean, you certainly can condition it, but I think you're again exceeding the limits of your jurisdiction by doing that.
Okay.
I do see, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't necessarily want to like go too deep in it, but I understand what you're saying, Mr. Brodsky, about that. But the tricky part of it for me, perhaps, is that if it's an uncovered porch, they would probably have to come back to us for something if they were doing work to it, to the house. But if it's already covered, making it a 3-season living room might not make it to conservation, and that's moved a living space closer to the resource area, which is the beach. So I understand what you're saying, but I still care that it's a covered porch.
So Ms. Foley, I don't know what to tell you. I have permitted dozens, if not
I'm sure you have
hundreds of projects within these similar wetland resource areas. And while you may not wish to see particular human activity on these decks, what you should respectfully focus in on is the performance standards for the resource areas. And again, there are no performance standards, at least under the State Act, for land subject to coastal storm flowage. I think you have a general no adverse impact under your local bylaw. And again, coastal dunes, the actual impact are the number of piles, which we are reducing there. So I imagine if they came, some future owner came in with a building permit to enclose the covered porch, I'm guessing that the building inspector would run that by the agent. Whether that requires review or not, I don't think we need to answer tonight. I don't think it would require review. If you were asking me, given my familiarity with the regulations and local bylaw, but the agent could always refer the issue to the Conservation Commission at that time. Having said that, we're not proposing to enclose the covered porches. We're asking for an orders of conditions approving just the covered porches. So I think it's a future question.
I just see in both these cases, I see structures moving closer to the ocean, which in most cases we have always discouraged. Seeing structures advance towards the water has not been something that the commission was certainly encouraging. At least my logic has always been that as decks, when people elevate their home, they can no longer use, they had the luxury of walking out on a patio or some other lower structure or surface. And then when they elevate their home, they wind up wanting to build a deck so that they can walk out of the house and use that. And I always thought that was a decent rationale, but I'm just seeing these complete structures advance 12, 14 feet closer to the ocean isn't exciting. I get your point. Water could still flow through it, and
Chair Snow, I hear you loud and clear. We're trying to find the balance between improving fire protection here and not penalizing the homeowner who didn't cause the fires in the first instance.
I get that, and I think that that's important, and I think that's been something that's been brought up to me personally a number of times since that, and trying to look for a balance. All right. The other thing, Greg, these infiltrators, the septic system under 74.
Yes.
Were those ever there before? Is this also a leaching field that's moving that much closer to the ocean?
It is a proposed leaching field underneath the building itself. There was a small leaching field in front of the house under the gravel parking area. That's non-compliant with Title V. This is the Title V requirement for the replacement in size.
But it looks to me like you used the area under the parking to accommodate 74B and 74C.
So 74B requires the area that's under the parking lot just for that one building, 74B.
Okay.
74 and 74C, where they're on the same property, get tied into one new system, which is located underneath house number 74.
So now we're putting a leaching field much closer to the ocean than previously existed.
Which complies with Title V setback requirements, yes.
Do we have a measurement on how much closer it is to the resource area than how much the proposed system is to the resource area than the previous or current?
So, I mean, the resource area is the floodplain. The whole site is within the floodplain.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So,
I mean, when we just keep kind of referencing like
the ocean.
The water.
Yeah, if you were going to take a measurement to say the rack line, which is the, kind of the high tide seaweed line, if you will. It's not necessarily where the high tide is, but the septic system is 75 feet away from that. The porch is 62 feet away from the rack line.
But if you switch it the other way around, say how much closer is the septic system to that rack line? Now there's a leaching field that's probably 50 feet closer than it was before.
Agreed. 50 feet would be the setback in Title V. It certainly is closer. Unfortunately, since these cottages were originally built to now, the Title V standards have changed, and the required area for the for the number of bedrooms on this site dictates what has to be installed today.
Greg, can I ask you, because you're replacing non-compliant systems with systems that comply with Title V, do they provide greater protection of resource areas, including groundwater?
They should, because they're going to be constructed with a groundwater separation from the bottom of the septic system. There should be a minimum separation of 4 feet to the groundwater table. We dug test pits, and we're actually providing 5 feet of separation with this septic system. We dug test pits in accordance with today's standards with the Board of Health representative on site to determine that there's 5 feet of groundwater separation there. Where the old system was under the parking lot, I don't know what depth that was installed. It's unlikely that it had 5 feet of groundwater separation, though.
Would you agree that even though one of the leaching fields is getting closer to the rack line, that the replacement of that system is going to result in a net environmental benefit over prior conditions?
Yes, I think it will.
And I apologize if I've missed this in the talk about the 74Bs or whatever is in the parking area, but it looks like 72's septic is in that area as well. Is that correct, or am I?
That is correct. This was a hodgepodge of old cottages that had septic systems all congregated in this one parking area. So 72's septic system is also located in this parking area, which limits us that we can't encroach upon it with this new septic system.
Greg, what's the mean high water?
Mean high water is approximately elevation 4.2. So we have a dashed dot line up closer to the north arrow that depicts the mean high water.
Where is that?
It's up by the north arrow on the plan. If you scrolled up on the page here.
Okay.
It's that dashed line right there where the cursor is. The one that's running side to side.
Yep.
Is the mean high water line.
Okay. I think that's it for me. Do we have anybody else to speak to this? Anybody, any other commission members want to add anything, or Amy?
Yes, I would. I feel like we've spun around a little bit, and I guess if we assume that covered porches are architectural features and not under our jurisdiction, then I guess I would change my objection then to the conversion of the current covered porch area to living space, right? And it seems that we've gone back and forth about the square footage of coverage, which includes the covered porches, and is matched together with the living space. I mean, this is a significant increase of living space and building on this site. And so we're converting current covered porches, which the commission, I think in the original hearing was thinking, okay, that's already a covered area and a roofed area. We'll accept that. But I think maybe we need to go back and consider whether that area should be covered if we're going to then tack an architectural feature onto the living space on the land side. I think and I don't know if Amy has any thoughts on the impact on the resource area and the dune or others, but I think to the point, if we feel like there is a negative impact on the increased building, we could look at that area that is currently enclosed porch that is becoming living space closer to the ocean.
Maybe that to help with that because this was a piece that was swimming around in my head, but according to Greg gave us for information, and maybe he could give us a little bit more. There was a pretty substantial covered porch on the south side of number 74, which is being removed for reasons of fire. It's being replaced with a small open deck on that side of the house, and then that roof structure is being constructed on the east side of that house. Greg, do you have any like square footage for the porches, one versus the other?
So what you just said, Frank, is correct. We're taking that entire area that was covered porch on the south side of number 74, and that's all going to be just open. I mean, some of it is open deck, but a lot of it just becomes open land. There's no structure whatsoever proposed there where that porch used to exist along the entire facade of the south side of that house. You know, there were porches on the ocean side of both these dwellings previously. So we've relocated where that porch was on the south side. We've relocated it to the ocean side now. I don't have a breakdown of what's porch versus what's, you know, building structure. I just did overall roof covered areas, is how I calculated it.
And does the same pertain to number 74B? Because I'm not seeing as much.
Yes, so 74.
Where was the porch before, I guess, in 70?
So if you zoom in on the plan for 74B, the porch extended all the way up to the town walkway.
Yeah.
North side of the building. And you'll see along the front of the house, where the stairs are now proposed for access in and out, you know, that house went essentially right up to the lot line, you know, within a foot of the lot line. And so we had to pull that house off of the lot line for fire protection. So we've gained some square footage there. And then on the south side, the porch line essentially is the edge of the proposed house.
Andy, you know how this actually works conversely? If you look at the plans for 74C and 74, you can see better the former outline of 74B and vice versa. It kind of, you can almost see it better if you look at it.
Yeah.
That way. I'm still not in love with moving the roof areas closer to the beach, but
Right.
I do see the I do see the matrix now. If you take a look at what the proposed work is for 74C, you can actually see a better outline of 74B and then vice versa. If you look at the other plan, you can see how big the house was with the porch over it, and then how much it's shrunk if you scroll back.
I guess that's why I don't have a problem with the project. I just looked at this graphically and see what was there and what's proposed. And I know Greg supplied the numbers, but you can just kind of see. It's almost like you're squeezing it on the side and it pokes out a little bit on either end. But the difference between, if you use the rack line as your demarcation of the ocean, the difference between what was there and what's proposed is the depth of the covered porch, the new covered porch, which is maybe 10 to 12 feet is all. But
it is still a creep in both cases of a covered surface going 10, 12, 14 feet, whatever it is, closer to the ocean in both cases. And now we have a leaching field that's moving that much closer to the ocean. And I get that now there's greater ground separation, you know, technically a more advanced or a better septic system means that we should have better water quality or better treatment of the sewage, but it's we still wind up with this leaching area going closer to the ocean.
If there wasn't a new home proposed here on this site and we were coming in with a replacement septic system for the houses that were already there, it's likely that the septic would include a portion under the existing home anyways, because the area just is not there within the existing gravel driveway.
And that system, the leaching area for you couldn't have done something another way that they could have run under the house lengthwise, say run it under 74 and 74B, just so it doesn't go so close to the ocean.
It gets tough. There's a detail kind of on the right side of the plans where we have to squeeze 3 water services in, and that's where the water services are coming up that left side and hitting those 3 buildings, Frank. And so it's a tricky one.
I asked this with knowing nothing about it, but is it potential to put all 3 houses on one septic?
The size of the septic system wouldn't be reduced, you know, so you'd still be looking at the same area essentially.
Right, but like, could you leverage more of the parking area if it was one system?
Looks like the neighbors are already as part of that as well.
Yeah.
They are.
And I mean, I can't visually see.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to change it significantly enough. You'd still be significantly under house number 74.
This is Adam Brodsky. We've done our very best to balance the client's property rights with the Wetlands Protection Act, your local bylaw, the state building code, the fire code, and Title V. And this is a fair result that balances all of those interests.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. Andy, do you want to, at least the moment, do you want to comment any further? Any of the other members?
No, I mean, we don't have the calculations for this hearing, but these homes are much larger, I think, is the bottom line, right? If you take the porches out of the question, the actual interior finished structure is significantly larger. Is that fair to say?
I would say the living space because of the stories and squaring them up. If you took actual living space, I don't think we have those calculations, but
And even just the footprint of the finished home is larger.
I'm not sure that if calculating in the porches and stuff, he's got a narrative there that shows that there's.
But I guess I'm saying take the porches out, because there's an argument made here that the porches don't have an impact on the resource area.
According to what was said tonight, I'm sorry to interrupt, but 74C has been increased the footprint by 38%.
So I guess that's it. We sort of spent, like, these are larger homes in a pretty important resource area, several resource areas. And then there's not a trade, like, it's like, yes, we're going to build a larger home, and then we're just going to tack on the porches that we used to have on top of the larger homes, and so there's just a lot more coverage on this. Well, there's not more coverage on the site, but there's more interior space and development of the home itself.
I would say that's a fair assessment.
So I guess that's the question. Like, is it appropriate in this resource area to permit the larger homes, especially as they expand towards the ocean, cover the dune?
Chair Snow, this is Adam Brodsky. I mean, we are often faced with a one-story structure that's not compliant with the flood construction requirements. The homeowner proposes to elevate it, keeps roughly the same footprint, and adds a second story, since it costs so much money to reconstruct and elevate these structures. Again, the Conservation Commission doesn't regulate living space or the intensity of activity in these resource areas. It needs to focus in on the performance standards for the resource areas. The impact to coastal dune are the pilings, not the amount of living space or the use of the structure. As I said, land subject to coastal storm flowage doesn't necessarily have a specific performance standard, but as you well know, the Department of Environmental Protection wants to see compliance with the state building code. And these projects comply in all respects. The structures are elevated above the design flood elevations. So from a wetlands point of view, which is clearly within your jurisdiction, we've never suggested that the Conservation Commission doesn't have jurisdiction here. These projects meet the performance standards. And I don't know what to say. You may have a desire not to see, more activity or living space within these resource areas, but the Commission's mission is to focus on the actual impacts to the resource areas and compliance with the performance standards.
Okay, I personally, people's right to use their property is something that we should not take away from them. I'm gonna totally agree with you on that. The fundamental problem I have with this project is the advancement of these houses towards the ocean, including a leaching system.
Yes, sir. And there's been no evidence that those are going to result in an adverse impact to either the coastal dune or a landslide coastal storm flowage.
Right. I get that. Guess that's the.
It's conjecture. Again, the commission has not articulated how that's going to adversely impact those resource areas.
Right. Okay. Well, I still don't think we can take in any more information that we can't close this meeting. So where we go from there, okay. Nobody else?
Sorry, can you say that again, Frank?
I don't think that we can take any more information this evening or request any additional information from the applicant that we can't close this hearing.
Okay.
I think we can close it, and then how we look at some of these things and think about what's within our purview in terms of issuing orders or denial. That's something that we can think about. But there's no more information that we're going to take from the public, and there's no more information from the engineer. unless somebody has a question that they haven't had answered that we need them to go back and figure out. I don't see that there's any more need to debate this evening.
Yep, I would agree.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion from somebody.
Do we need two
I
here?
make
Do we need two motions for?
I think a motion to do all of them would be fine if you want to do 74, 74C and 74B, all as one motion. That's or it's do them separate. There's two applications. So I'll take a motion for 74 and 74C.
I move
I
that we
make a motion.
Okay. Go ahead, Jen.
Doug, it's all you. No,
I say Doug got
No.
that
it's all
one.
you, Doug.
Doug got that one,
Yep.
and Jen got a second. So
Yep.
if Doug for the motion, Jen for the second, all in favor. Andy,
Yes.
Brendan.
Yes.
Now I need a motion to close 74B. Try not to be too courteous to each other.
Okay, I make a
I
motion. You did
You
that
gotta
on
laugh
purpose.
at some
All right,
point.
Jen's made the motion. Doug seconded it.
Yeah.
All in favor.
There you go.
Andy
Yes.
and Brendan.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. So 72 Brunswick Street on October, what's that? 42. Thanks. Sorry. Enough 70s. 42 Brunswick Street. On October 2nd at 6 p.m., the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws to amend the order conditions issued under DEP file number 68-2922 regarding the application of Mike Mangano for work related to raising and reconstructing a single-family dwelling at location 42 Brunswick Street, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. Okay.
I muted Kevin Grady.
Thanks, Amy. Good evening, commissioners. Kevin Grady from Grady Consulting. I'm here with the applicant, Mike Mangano, his attorney, Adam Brodsky, who's got a full slate tonight, it looks like, on your agenda. Their builder, Rick Lorden. If they need to speak, we could unmute them at that time. Amy, that would be great. Thank you. The project is raise and rebuild for a house at 42 Brunswick Street. We submitted a notice of intent and received an order of conditions in August of 2021. The applicant recently applied for a building permit with the building department. And when that application was routed through the town hall to the various boards, the commission's agent flagged it for an amendment. The applicant did not initiate this request for amendment that's before the commission tonight. There were no changes to the architectural plans, structural plans, or anything that would have predicated us to request this amendment. I believe the commission's agent flagged this because the title on the plan says plot plan for a proposed addition, which created some confusion. Again, nothing that we had submitted previously, the architectural plans, structural plans, pilings, anything changed since our order of conditions. It was flagged for I believe confusion and labeling of the site plan. In hindsight, I would have preferred to use a more generic term such as plot plan or site plan. we reviewed the videos of our previous hearings where the commission closed the hearing and issued the order of conditions. We made it clear at that time that this was not a plot plan for additions and that it was a raise and rebuild, and that the commission was well aware what the application was.
Kevin, can I just ask you one quick? You've pointed out a couple of points here, but I guess my question would be the application for this project back when it was done was for an addition, and the paperwork that was filed by the engineer at the time was for an addition, not a raise and rebuild.
All of the materials that were submitted along with this,
the initial application for this, and I read it when I opened that meeting, was not a raise and rebuild, but to elevate an existing home and add on to it. There were just discussion during the meeting as to which way it went, but part of it's more than just a block on the paper. There was a discrepancy between what was applied for and what came up at the meeting.
two things, Frank. Could you please unmute the applicant's attorney, Adam Brodsky?
Sure.
Thank you. And I would have to go back through to 2025 to take a look at everything that was submitted. But just a cursory review of the plans. We couldn't, can we show, actually, I wish we had the old plan that showed the colorings.
Kevin, this is Adam Brodsky. Can I weigh in? I might be able to
Sure.
shed some light on this.
Sure.
And again, good evening, Adam Brodsky for the applicant. I wrote to the commission on September 13, explaining what had occurred back in 2021, and I provided the link to the video as well as the minutes. And if the commission watched the video, it became clear that from the very beginning, when Ms. Condon was presenting the project, it was presented as a raise and rebuild. The commission specifically questioned Ms. Condon about that. It was clarified. The plans show a raise and rebuild. They're labeled incorrectly, but that was resolved at the hearing in 2021. And in fact, is reflected in the minutes of the commission, which I also provided in my September 13th letter. As I explained and tried to advocate, I didn't see any need for an amendment. The exception being since the clients had to submit an amendment, they do want to slightly reconfigure a deck, so they wanted to use this opportunity. But the amendment itself, which was requested, simply relabels the plan. It doesn't change the plans in any respect. And the project was properly reviewed at a public hearing with public comment and accurately described during that public hearing. Again, I'm a bit at a loss as to why we need to do this. But obviously the commission insisted we do this. The practical effect of which is that it's delayed the client getting a building permit, creating construction headaches, as you can appreciate, trying to begin a project, trying to get that project enclosed before winter conditions. This delay may result in the project not being commenced in a timely fashion, and it's putting pressure. So again, I respectfully disagree with the characterization. It was labeled incorrectly. And I believe the notice was incorrect, but that error was resolved and corrected at the public hearing in 2021, for which the client has a valid order of conditions. Having said that, I made my arguments. They were not persuasive. And we're before you with what's really just a procedural amendment where I was hoping this could be done administratively, except for the deck, of course, that is a change. And we're happy to speak to the minor change in the configuration of the deck. But again, I provided you with all the information I was able to collect, which that happened in 2021. I was not a participant in that, but just watching the video and reading the minutes, it was clear that this was approved as a raise and rebuild. So
Okay.
I'm sorry for the long-winded answer to the question, but I was trying to summarize my letter.
Thank you. Amy?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what good it does to rehash this, honestly. So it was advertised as an addition, came in as a category 1 in 21 as an addition. You guys discussed it as an addition. If there was some discussion about a raise rebuild at the time too, so I think it was confusing, but anyways, the follow through and making it the raise rebuild never got cleared up in the plans. So certainly they're here to clear up that description for the record, and also for any interested abutters, because as you know, the way we tape our meetings is speaker view with the plan, which we're presenting, primarily dominating the topic of conversation. So if that plan says an addition and that's what you're looking at through the hearing, then I think that's probably what you're thinking we're talking about. But anyways,
Well, we all know what we're talking about now. So
yeah.
If
So
we could-
anyways, so house is going, I guess they're tearing the house down and it's going up on piles with a repaired septic system. And so I guess that my comments for this type of project are very typical, the same comments that I would have for the project that you just discussed over on the Glades. Although this is a barrier beach, primary frontal dune, velocity zone halfway through the house. So it's a high intense velocity zone, coastal dune, land subject to coastal storm flowage. But you know, you are taking a house that is sitting on a foundation and you're getting it up on driven piles. So that's definitely a benefit. And the increase in area of the house is, I mean, there's proposed decks which are accessory to the house, but it's not overly huge. It's a pretty small lot. So really have that much to say, other than I'm a little concerned that the Board of Health also may have approved this as a you know, a repair to the existing dwelling with an addition, not as a raised rebuild. So they also should probably sign off on the revised plan as well. And that would be it.
Chair Snow, this is Adam Brodsky. I just want to be clear, we're not reopening the notice of intent for
That's right.
general comment.
We're amending it to
That's
correct
right. There are only 3 issues, 2 changes to plans and the revised deck.
Maybe just one of you guys just give us a quick outline on what the change is, and we can.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to. 1, the site plan title will be changed from plot plan for addition to site plan. 2, remove the phrase proposed additions from the plan and add proposed dwelling. And then the 3rd is revise the plan to show the minor changes in the footprint of the proposed deck. Those are the only 3 things that are subject to the request.
What's the change in the deck?
Kevin, I'll defer to you on that if you've got that.
Yep, I discussed this earlier with the applicant. So the existing deck on the site is hatched as horizontal lines. The gray, as you can see, prop deck is really emboldened there, but just below that it says deck. It should say existing deck. It's in our existing font, but the horizontal lines of the existing deck The change in the deck is to the north side. I don't have a north arrow, but north side of the plan. They extended it to go around the side of the building. That's an area that can pick up sunsets and get sunlight. That's the change.
Is it roughly, it's a 2-foot extension of the deck in that small area?
Correct.
Okay. Does it change the piling plan, Kevin, or is it just going to cantilever, or do you know?
I don't know, Frank. Honestly, I'm covering this for Paul Seberg from our office, who is out sick today.
Okay.
So I did review this.
Chair Snow, that there is no change in the piling plan, just so you know.
Okay.
And
All right. Those are the
Mr.
questions.
Mangano is available to speak if you want to hear from him. He can confirm that, but I'm looking at the plan and there's no change in the piling plan.
Okay. I'm going to go to Amy. Are you all set? Can we want to go to members, or do you have something else you want to add?
Yeah, so I guess you might want to like look at this on your map browser, because you will see that it's this site is vegetated as well. So
Okay. We don't have Richard on this evening, do we?
no, Richard.
Okay. Doug, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, sure. Regarding the deck, Kevin, if you look at the plan that was submitted, there's an existing, you can't see it on our screen right now, but there's an existing and a proposed, like they're two separated plans.
Yeah,
So
if you pan.
if you have that helps you. But my question is this is an amendment or a modification?
It's
I never get.
Yeah, it's an amendment.
It's an amendment. So we're amending something that the commission already approved. That's
correct.
So, and was I there? maybe
I was told I was, and the video proves it too.
2021, I guess I was there. Okay, so it doesn't matter. We have a lot of these, but what I'm trying to get an idea of what's the difference in the size of the deck between what we already approved and what you're showing now.
There actually is no change in the size of the deck. It's that I think the building is slightly shifted over. See this, if you look on this plan, the deck wraps around the existing building, and we're mirroring that exact thing. So when you look at the other plan, it's slid over slightly.
And Mr. Aber, you were present at the meeting on June 21, 2021. I'm reading from the minutes.
Okay, I believe you. Okay, so that was my question, because I was trying to determine if there was a substantial change in the size of the deck. So it's just more really the location of it.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's all.
Okay. Brendan?
I'm not, yeah, I guess I'm still having trouble seeing what the change is on this plan.
Chair Snow, if you can unmute the client, Mr. Mangano, he's available and he can perhaps explain this in more detail.
Yeah, Jen's going to do that.
Hey, everybody. Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thanks. My apologies, and thank you for letting us speak, and thank you for the team for joining us here. And historically, actually, what happened here was when Heidi did the original drawing, she actually made the deck smaller than it is today. on that side by 2 feet. That was it. And when I looked at the drawings and we presented them, I did not notice that. And so all this existing deck is doing essentially is staying in the exact same footprint, because I have a flagpole stand there that I don't want to lose my flagpole. So none of that is necessarily moving. So we just went back to the original size of the deck. I didn't notice it in the first drawings that she had cut that 2 feet off. That's all it is. That's the only change. The pilings, everything else is the exact same. So thank you to everybody. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Does that help at all?
I guess.
It's a little hard to see, but I'm getting it. Andy?
I am good. Thank you.
Jen?
I appreciate a flagpole, so I'm with you on that. I just put one in this year, very excited. Yeah, I really appreciate that explanation as well, because my initial impression was that the deck was going to be 2 feet more, and that's a very vegetated and strong dune area. I've scrolled through a couple years of images, so I wouldn't want to change that. But if that's exactly what it is already, then it seems reasonable that the deck stays in that same spot. Like there's nothing changing about the deck. Like it's not. Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing some very helpful head shaking from the homeowners. So, like a typical Zoom call. So thank you.
I cover do we have anybody in the audience for this?
Seeing none.
Okay. So in this case with amended order, I guess we just take a motion to amend the orders.
Accept the revised site plan, yeah.
Okay. Can I get a motion for that?
Go ahead, Jen.
I'm trying to remember what the motion would be. I make a motion to amend the orders with the revised site plan.
I think that sounds good, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Gets the point across.
Not going to split any more hairs here. Motion from Jen, a second from.
I'll second that.
From Brendan. All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Appreciate it.
Night. 81 Edward Foster Road. Oh, it's withdrawn. Okay, so we're not opening that one. Anything else? Okay. Agent Amy, anything on an agent's update?
Well, you know what, since we just met a week ago, no.
Good.
We've got C of Cs. I'm gonna issue one for a septic system, the other for an addition on a house on Jason's Lane. And then you have orders.
Okay. Sorry. Orders for 70 Glades Road. Anybody want to motion?
Make a motion. We issue the orders for 70 Glades Road.
A second.
Second, Andy.
All in favor? Doug?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay. I don't have anything else. Could this be it?
Oh my gosh, my babysitter is going to be so excited.
All right.
Okay,
That's it. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
A second.
I will second that.
And in favor, Doug,
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Andy,
Oh, thanks.
Frank, yes. Oh, Andy, I'll get an email out to you, but I had a request from one of the selectmen asking about the possibility of an orchard at Appleton. I'll forward, get that email off to you.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
That's cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Okay.
All right, you guys all have a nice evening. And thanks for your indulgence here.
Okay, you too.
Good night.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.